Well, glad to be with Jared Wilson here, the author of the newly released Echo Island, a work of fiction, and something I've been talking about with Jared Wilson for many years here, even long before we started working at Midwestern together. Familiar with his earlier work, Otherworld, and hope that this book will allow other works to come out. Just wanted to give Jared a couple moments here to share a little bit about the book. And I think, Jared, it'd be great if you just started talking about the writing process. I know you had started Echo Island how long ago, and then how did it come to be now?
Yeah, it was almost 15 years ago that I started the book, and it was when it was in the period when I was originally trying to write, trying to publish as a novelist. So before I wrote any nonfiction, it was the third novel that I began writing. So I'd written two previous novels and then began this one. And about halfway through, we were in the midst of planting a church in Nashville, Tennessee, and just had to kind of put it on the shelf and never came back to it. So ended up publishing a lot of nonfiction in the interim. And so last year, B&H publishers reached out to me. B&H Kids reached out to me about publishing tween fiction, something for kind of that junior high age. And I just honestly share with them I didn't feel necessarily gifted to write something like that, or passionate to write something. But I had this half-written novel from ages ago that I did not envision as a young adult novel, but could easily be one because the main characters are teenage boys. And they were willing to look at it, and they liked it, and they wanted to see the rest of it. So I was, really happy to kind of revisit the story. But it was literally over a decade ago that I started it, so I kind of picked it up. But it's a story that's always been in my head. I've always wanted to finish it. I didn't feel like I abandoned it. It just was a very long pause on the story.
And fiction authors of all kinds write in different ways. Many of them will tell you that they don't know how it's going to end. They just start writing, and the story goes where it goes. Did you, even though you'd only written half, did you have it pretty well know where you're going to go, or did you figure that out as you picked it back up again?
I knew the major plot points. So the couple of twists I had kind of calculated, and in fact, when I would tell people about the story, over the last several years, hey, I've got this novel, I'd love to finish it. Let me tell you, about it. I had the twists already in mind. Who made it, who doesn't make it, how, all those sorts of things. Those kind of came as I was writing it. I didn't necessarily have that all plotted out. And then the very end itself was something that kind of came about as I was writing. I wasn't sure how I was going to end the story in particular. And for those who read it, you'll see the ending kind of, is somewhat significant in terms of what takes place in relation to what kind of story it is. And that, for some reason, was always very vague in my mind. I knew the major plot points, but how I wanted to, in essence, wrap it up, I had to kind of discover that in a way.
Well, I've read it and enjoyed it immensely, and it's one of those books. It's entertaining, and I got to be careful here not to give too much away. But it's it's about a good portion of the way through. It moved from just being entertaining to really to get you to think. Of course, that's the type of books I really enjoy reading, and fiction at that as well. And so I'll let you share how much you want to share. But clearly, the book is influenced by your love for C.S. Lewis and the things that you've read from him, fiction and nonfiction. Can you describe even the background of some of those themes, or how would you want to do it?
Sure. I mean, Lewis's influence, of course, is all over the book. From the kind of story it is, where you would have really, just the ordinary world that is somewhat transformed, or at least is deeper than think or expect. That's certainly a very Lewisian thing, where you might enter into another world, or the world that has more, has the deeper magic to it than you suspected. But even some of things that mythology that Lewis sort of played around with as well. But even those who read Lewis, if you're well read in his work, nonfiction and fiction, you'll pick up on little allusions to quotes and different lines. There are things that he said that I tried to kind of work in, just in terms of allusions to things, almost quotes to things But there's certainly a particular, conceit in the book that I've drawn directly from him and from a previous work of his, that to reveal would kind of spoil it, but it's something that he borrowed as well. So I kind of see this book as in kind of a tradition, in a line of works, in particular Dante's Inferno, the Divine Comedy, generally, but Dante to George MacDonald to C.S. Lewis, and then it may be prideful to think, to think this way, but I'm trying to kind of carry that baton to take the baton from that succession in the story.
Yeah, no, I definitely think it's that, and I'll refrain from saying any more because it hit me. I hadn't talked to you about it before I read it, and it hit me about halfway through. I thought I knew what you might be doing, and then seeing it come together, it just got better and better. Well, the book is Echo Island. It's out from B&H Kids. I hope many people will read it, and I do hope they'll enjoy it and profit from it. And it's the first of many more fiction novels from Jared Wilson. So thanks so much for your time here, Jared.
Thank you, brother.